We start with this is our three.
Yeah, I think.
You good on the?
Yes.
Chairman's pleasure. Good afternoon. Are we recording now?
Yes, sir.
Great. I'd like to call to order the Wednesday, August 12th, 2026 meeting of the KIPTA Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee. Jim Silliman here. And Andy, would you like to do a roll?
Sir, sure will. We'll start with Bullitt County.
Keep Ricky here.
Charlestown. Jeffersontown.
Steve Bruce here.
Thank you. Jeffersonville. Mount Washington. New Albany. Shepherdsville.
Yes, sir.
Arthur. St. Matthews.
Here.
Thank you. Clark County. Floyd County.
Nick Reevy, sir.
Hello, Nick. NDOT Seymour Division.
Haley's here.
Haley. NDOT Public Transportation.
Bob Tally's here.
Bob. Anybody else from NDOT on the line? Thank you all for joining us. Kentucky DAQ.
Kentucky DAQ's here.
Hi there. Kentucky Transportation Cabinet Central Office.
Here, Cesar Delgado, Regional Planning.
KYTC District 5. Tom. I think I saw Tracy. Hey, Tracy.
Tracy Level.
Is here. KYTC Office of Transportation Delivery.
Megan Pittman.
Oh, hey, Megan. Hi there. Thank you for joining us. Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
Present.
Thank you all for joining us. Metro Economic Development. How about Metro Planning and Design? How about Metro Public Works?
Present.
Hello, Mark. Louisville Regional Airport Authority. Here, Daryl. Thank you, Daryl. Louisville River Port Authority. Oldham County.
Jim Silliman here.
Thank you. Oldham County Planning Commission. Anybody from the Port of Indiana? How about Town of Clarksville? And TARP. I see Chris and Leanne, maybe? Is that what I saw?
Yes.
All right. Thank you all both for joining us. Looks like Mike King just joined us. Hey, Mike. I think I've got everybody. Thank you for everybody in the room. We've got I think a full agenda today. It's just no guest speakers, just all KIPTA staff. I think you will find this to be the most, dare I say, educational meeting you've had in a while, in terms of we're gonna have a wide range of stuff to talk about today. So thank you all, and we most definitely inform.
Great. Thank you. So in your electronic invitation, you would have received the minutes from the June 10th meeting. Do you have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right, no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. Thank you. Next, we've got the TPC report. Andy?
This will be a TPC report for the meeting that was held on June 25th. In fact, a lot of the information we'll have today at this meeting is, dare I say, a follow-on from what we did in June. Notably at June, we had a guest speaker at TPC, Jennifer Kirchner from KBT, Kentuckians for Better Transportation. She came and gave a talk, or she came online to give a talk about recent session in Frankfurt and some of the initiatives that KBT has going on. For those that aren't involved with KBT on the Kentucky side of the river, for sure, I would encourage you to get involved with them. And they've got an annual conference here. It's always here in Louisville in January, really educational on transportation issues. So If you aren't involved, I'd be happy to help you get involved if you'd like to. We talked a little bit about our long-range plan development, most notably the project scoring. And again, we'll hear more about the development of the long-range plan today. Similarly, we heard about the project management guidebook. We'll get that finalized. We'll hear some more about kind of the repercussions of that today. And the call for projects. Again, we'll be talking about that over the next few months. So same for the socioeconomic. So we kind of set the stage 2 months ago for what we're going to do on today's agenda. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about what TPC back in June. That concludes the report.
Quiet room right now, so we'll move on to
Let's go.
item 4, public comment. Greg?
Yes, did not have any public comments prior to the meeting, not seeing any in the chat, but if they are entered during the meeting, we will bring them up in other business.
Very good, thank you. And Greg, you can continue on. You've got the participation plan update.
Yes, so just to give a little bit of the backstory, in November of 2023, KIPTA passed a policy that allowed some administrative modifications to be added to the MTP, our Metropolitan Transportation Plan. Since that came after our MTP was developed, it was never directly put into the MTP. It was essentially just put on our website as an informational thing, so folks would know, public would know, as well as committees. As part of our FCR, one of the recommendations that kind of came out from that is they wanted to see that in the MTP as well as the participation plan. There is a section in our participation plan that essentially breaks down all our plans and projects, our MTP, our TIP. So I went back in, I've added a little section in there, put something in the appendix of the participation plan that essentially explains that policy and hyperlinks to the MTP page. They felt, the feds, we had the discussion, they felt like it was enough of a change that it warranted an amendment. So we kicked that off as a 15-day, or I'm sorry, 7-day amendment policy. Out to the public, did not receive any public comments on it at all. So I'm just asking for action today to take this to TPC so that we can recommend this amendment be approved. And I'll take any questions anybody has.
Well, first, do we have a motion to move the participation plan amendment to TPC?
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Great. Any questions for Greg? No? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? I think that opposite, or that was not opposition, that was a late acceptance. Thank you. All right, that motion passes. Thank you. Next, item 6, we've got the socioeconomic forecast results with Darian.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Darian Cook. I'm a transportation planner here at KIPTA. I'm going to be presenting our socioeconomic forecast results today. So first, I'm going to give a quick recap of the purpose of socioeconomic forecasting. It is used to predict future population, housing, and employment. This acts as a foundation for long-range transportation planning, which we are currently in the process of updating. Our up-and-coming MTP is called Moving Kentuckiana Forward 2050, MKF 2050. These estimates help to ensure transportation investments align with the estimated growth of our region over a 20+ year period. The maps include our MTP horizon year 2050 numbers and the change from 2025 base year to 2050. Forecasts of housing and employment are also crucial data inputs for travel demand modeling, which predict future travel behavior, traffic volumes, and transit demand. So this is a roadmap that we presented to you all in March of this year. This shows all of the steps that we have taken throughout this process. We completed phase 2 in June of this year. KIPTA staff facilitated county level working meetings with planners and officials to incorporate local input into the data. So we want to thank everyone who hosted and attended our working meetings and provided us with feedback. Thanks to your all's cooperation, we were able to gather some really valuable local knowledge and fine tune our forecasts and update our maps. So thank you all for being a part of the process. And we are currently in phase 3 on the roadmap. So We have made our final adjustments to the housing and employment maps after incorporating the local input obtained from our working meetings into the data. KIPTA staff are currently in the process of calibrating our travel demand model, which uses the household and employment data to generate trip data based on where people live and work in this region. So the last step in this process is going to be incorporating this socioeconomic data and the maps into our new MTP, MKF 2050, which will be presented to TTCC and TPC in May of 2027. So now we're going to go ahead and look at the maps. So if you could click on that link, Greg, should take you to the interactive map that we have, that was in the back. Are you able to click it?
Still link it.
Where it says Bullitt County employment.
There it is. Okay.
So this is the Bullitt County employment map. So I'm gonna give you all some county level numbers when we take a look at this. We'll just look at them quickly since they were included in the memo that we sent out to you all a week ago. So for the 2050 employment number for the county, we had 39,703 jobs. And the change from 2025 to 2050 was 15,417. So that is for Bullitt County employment. Next, we'll look at Bullitt County households. Sorry, Greg.
You're fine. It's gonna work the way we thought it would.
If,
Unfortunately, I thought it would work. I thought it would work differently, but I'd be able to switch back and forth.
that's okay, we don't have to click on the links, we can just look at the screenshots of the maps, but. So the next map we're gonna be looking at is the Bullitt County household map. Which has the 2050 numbers and the change from 2025 to 2050. So for 2050, the households that we have for Bullitt County, we have 44,432 households, and the change for 2025 to 2050 was 10,986. And next, we're gonna look at Clark County employment, we had 81,164 jobs, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 21,259. For households, we have 2050 households was 60,645, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 3,822. For Floyd County employment, we have the 2050 employment was 42,259, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 6,480. And for households, we have the 2050 number 37,352 jobs, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 2,254. For Jefferson County employment, 2050, we had 617,286, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 82,646. And households, we had 2050, 360,212, and the change from 2025 to 2050 was 17,843. All right, and the last county is Oldham County. So for employment, we had 2050 numbers were 27,148, and the change was 6,728. And for households, we have 31,694 for houses, and the change for 2025 to 2050 was 7,562. So KIPTA staff is requesting TTCC recommendation to have TPC approval for the socioeconomic forecast process and results. And also if anyone has any questions or anything to comment.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the socioeconomic forecast? Excuse me.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. I'll just add that, I think this is a great exercise for us in Oldham County. We were continuing on having just done or updated our comprehensive plan. So taking that information and moving it onto your maps also worked out really well.
Thank you to everybody for that, because this was it's been a long process for sure. It's been several months in the making, and thanks for everybody's help in getting us to the this finish line, or at least this intermediate finish line, because as Darren mentioned, we need to take this and run with it and put it into our model and use for numerous other reasons downstream.
Any questions for Darren? No? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Darren. And next, Kyle, I understand you're gonna present the CMAC performance target update.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Thorne. Might be a familiar face to some, new face to others. I was here for a little bit, went to grad school, and now I'm back. I'm excited to be back. Really been focused on the MTP update the last month or so, especially with these performance measures, both federally required performance measures as well as MTP, NPO developed performance measures we've been working on. Today, I'm really gonna focus in on just 3 performance measures, the CMAC performance measures, that must be updated and approved by the states by October 1st. They're required to by federal highways to have these performance measures adopted in coordination with the NPOs. So 3 performance measures that I'm talking about are peak hour excessive delay or PHEAD, the cumulative CMAC emission reduction, and then the percent of non-SOV travel to work. So starting out with peak hour excessive delay, this is really a measure of the delay people experience during rush hour on the national highway system in the urbanized area. So as you can see, the data has been a little noisy the last couple of years, but it has generally followed an increasing trend line of more delay. It is important to note that between 2024 and 2025, the urbanized area did change. We ran the data a little bit and found this resulted in a 0.4 hour increase in delay due to the fact that Mount Washington and LaGrange are no longer in the urbanized area. While these areas are congested, they don't have NHS routes that are as congested or NHS routes at all. So with this in mind, in the fact that there aren't any congestion mitigation projects really programmed in the future. We really are just targeting the status quo through the 2-year and 4-year of 11.5. Moving on to the CMAC emission reduction. This is really a measure of emission reductions based on CMAC projects in Kentucky and Indiana. So that's VOCs, volatile organic compounds, as well as nitric oxides. We see there's a gap in numbers in Kentucky for a couple of years. This is just due to the fact that there were no CMAC projects at all these years in Kentucky. The bulk of the Indiana projects, or the bulk of the Indiana emission reductions, is both projects that have occurred in Indiana, as well as funding for the CARE program that APCD carries out, which is focused on education to reduce air pollution. So with this in mind, for our targets, we look back at prior projects and data, as well as future projects that are programmed in the region, and set I think glasses, I can't read that unfortunately, but 47.3 and I think 30, I don't know.
31.2 looks like.
Yeah, there we go. Should have written that down. Alrighty. And moving on, last but not least, the non-SOV travel. This is a measure of the percent of people that travel to work that are not driving alone. So walking, biking, taking transit or carpooling, or most importantly, telecommuting, which is why we've seen a rise in the last couple of years. This comes from 5-year American Community Survey data or ACS data. So the 2021 data is this, I guess, the average of the prior 4 years as well as 2021 data. So this is a lot of pre-COVID numbers where people were not working from home quite as much. And then as we go on 2022, one year pre-COVID data falls off, and so forth as we go on. So with that in mind, trend line is increasing. We think we'll continue to increase for a little bit. We'll probably level off as these pre-COVID years fall off a little bit. We're targeting 27.2 and then 27.5 for the 2-year and 4-year targets. Any questions? None. Action is requested.
I might real quick, it might be important to note that the targets that have been put on, that we've brought to you guys today, they were formulated in conjunction with NDOT and KYTC staff, because they've got staff at both the state DOTs that are eager to get these from us, that is, so they can plug into their submittals, I guess, to federal highways by October 1st, and I think they both want them by Like when we said, hey, would you like them by the end of August? We can do the end of August, that's quick as we can do around here, so that's the intent in there.
I'll go ahead and ask for a motion to accept the CMAQ performance target update. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Keith. For discussion, I was gonna ask, so you, in both the target, you had the 11.5, and then also for the non-SOV, it stays constant, right? That's your
this would be-
targeting?
We target a little more aggressive, I guess.
Do you
for
really
the
just,
year.
but do we expect it to follow that line? I mean, we're targeting one, but,
All three of these are incredibly hard to predict,
okay,
all three of them. For that matter, the CMAQ emission reduction one is kind of a goofy how we're required to calculate it, meaning you only get credit for the projects that reduce those emissions in your CMAQ program.
okay,
And we haven't had CMAQ call for projects in Kentucky for several years, so 0,
that's why.
yeah. The other two are a little bit dicey for some of the reasons Kyle mentioned, like the delay one. It's not on all the roads. If you have delay trying to get back to Blankenbaker on your way back to your offices or on your way home, that doesn't count because it's not on the national highway system. So it only counts on the interstates and the major other roads. And then the non-SOV, that's kind of a wild card too, because it's 5-year rolling averages, as Kyle's mentioned. It's a tricky one. It's tricky to predict.
Okay.
Yeah. There aren't major repercussions for the region to come up short. And for that matter, you know, I said 4-year and 2-year targets. At the 2-year period, you get a chance to take like at halftime, you get to say, hey, where's our trajectory over the last 2 years? And we're allowed to adjust them at that point in time to make more sense out of them as more data comes in.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments? Hearing none, do we have all those in favor? Please say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, so the CMAQ performance target updates will move to TPC for approval, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Kyle. Brady, do you have the Indiana funding adjustments to present, please?
We had our summer Indiana quarterly meeting in Albany on July 29th, where we had a status update of all our activity projects, and due to the length of time needed to make adjustments in the tip stip and through contract amendments on our Indiana side, it is necessary more now than it perhaps has been in the past, that if we want to make any adjustments in the current fiscal year, they need to be finalized very early, August, September, maybe October. Anything past October, you're almost looking at not being able to get everything ready for a funding authorization by April of next year in certain cases. So if there is funding available to be adjusted, now is the time. And so these discussions were had at this meeting in July, and I'll provide a summary of the discussion recommendations of that meeting at that time. To start off with, there's $84,161 that is unprogrammed in fiscal year 27 in Indiana from the beginning of the fiscal year. There's also 2 phases listed here that are currently programmed for PE. One is for KIPT ID 3136, that's number 2301550 is the intersection of East Spring Street for Harrow. That $400,000 for right of way is very unlikely to be able to reach authorization in fiscal year 27, as well as due to some delays and some NEPA evaluation processes. KIPT ID 3369, that's number 2401854, Slate Road North Phase 2, also has some right of way funds that are unlikely to be authorized in this fiscal year. If you total those 3 numbers up, I just shared, then that results in $887,101 that needs to be reprogrammed to other project needs in fiscal year 27 in order to be able to utilize all of our funding in this fiscal year. The recommendations as follows: to program 100 $100,800 of STBG MPO dollars to the PE phase of KIPTA ID 3367 DES number 2401834 Baylor Wiseman Hilltop project. And also to program an additional $786,301 of CMAC MPO dollars to the PE phase of KIPTA ID 3364 DES number 2401840. That's the Clark County Sellersburg CR 311 project. So is there any questions? If there's not any questions, then there will be action requested to recommend approval of the funding adjustments as presented.
I assume as usual, this is with, these came up from thorough vetting of the agencies that KIPTA always does.
Indeed, yeah, in fact, that CR 311 one, that's a project that's touches multiple communities over southern Indiana, to say the least. In fact, the sponsorship of that project will be shifting from Clark County to town of Sellersburg as they move forward into the construction phase. Yes, is that right?
Do we have a motion to approve the Indiana funding adjustments?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Well, second.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None, so the motion passes. Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brady. Next, we have the functional classification map update. Chris?
Been a while since we talked about this, and I think this will probably be the final presentation on the roadway functional classification updates. As we're wrapping it up with the process, and we have received the lists of the final approved updates via the state highway departments that FHWA approved. Okay, so in review, KIPTA staff, local and state district planners reviewed and prepared recommendations for the functional classification updates in each of the 5 main KIPTA counties. Our recommendations were then sent to INDOT and KYTC GIS staff, and they were tasked with managing these updates. This timing of the project was in response to the 2020 census defined urban area boundary update and the FHWA attempted urban area boundary updates. The functional classification updates are the last step in the cycle of updates based on the decennial census and the urban area boundary update. And the initial local submission was made back in spring of 2025. A lot of the same folks who were in the working meetings for the socioeconomic forecast helped out with this, if you might remember, so thanks again for your help. Let's see. INDOT and QITC made some additional adjustments in both cases after we submitted our local recommendations to the state highway departments. On the Indiana side, KIPTA met with INDOT GIS to fine tune that list, Andy and myself did. And then on the Kentucky side, KYTC GIS accepted our original list. However, they added a large amount to Jefferson County in particular, and a few also in Oldham and Bullitt County at that time. So, in this case, KIPTA, Louisville Metro staff and KYTC GIS met together to fine tune that list before ultimately submitting it to the feds. So today I'm going to discuss the final approved list. And I'm also gonna point you all into the right direction for resources and the current status of the functional classifications online, just so that you can research that over time if you need to, and also how to create a request if you need to. So my summary tables, there's a URL in the meeting packet But then also for your convenience, I've got this QR code here. And if anyone wants to follow along, if they hadn't reviewed the list yet. Okay. As a reminder, all public roadways are classified 1 through 7 urban or 1 through 7 rural. Roadways within the 2020 FHWA adjusted urban area boundary are urban, and those that are without that, not in that boundary, are considered rural. So in most cases, only the 1 through 6 urban roads and the 1 through 5 rural roads are eligible for federal funding. Okay, so the easy news to talk about is that all of the changes submitted by NDOT to FHWA in Clark and Floyd counties were accepted. There was just a few very minor changes to the termini, very minimal. Okay, so in NDOT GIS provided copies of the FHWA acceptance letters. I do have those if anyone is interested in seeing those copies, but these are both quotes from those letters in Clark County. I just thought this was cool to add. 28.08 miles were upgraded and 19.12 miles were reduced. And the total functional classification miles in Clark County is 1,255. In Floyd, we upgraded 40.05 miles and we reduced 4.11 miles, and the total increase was 0.22 miles. And so here I've got the NDOT resources in case anyone needs them or wants them. At this URL, you have two options that you might be interested in. They have their interactive functional classification viewer, and that one is up to date with these updates. And also there's the link to the application if you were to make the request in the interim. However, KIPTA is planning to do this process again once we have the next urban area boundary update and go through the full cycle again. So it is a good opportunity to review all of those, but if there's some sort of immediate need of a new road in between, this is how you do it, and you can also reach out to me and I can help with the process as well. So next I'm going to move to the Kentucky updates. In this case, we're left with a few lingering questions. So this is my summary. In Bullitt County, only two updates were approved of our initial request list. So we're looking into why 5 of the additional original requests were not accepted. And KYTC GIS staff, they also had 7 additional requests added to the Bullitt County list, and none of those were approved by Federal Highways. In Jefferson County, 10 out of the 11 original requests were accepted. The missing one is Logistics Way. It's not clear to me why that was missing. It doesn't look like it made it onto the list, but otherwise 10 out of the 11 were accepted. And let's see. Of Oldham County, all 12 of the approved and 1 out of the 3 KYTC additions were approved. So most of those were approved. Okay. KIPTA is also planning to follow up with KYTC staff to see what further information we can get, in particular with Bullitt County. I gave Keith a heads up, and when we do find out maybe a little bit more information of why those 5 were not accepted, we'll let you know. Also, as of early this week on the website, it does not look like the new updates are there yet. And I reached out and I was told that they were working on the updates in District 5 now. So I don't know, as of today, it might be done, but they were working on it now. So we don't have the shape files. And when we do have the shape files, those updates will be on KIPTA's website. And also you'll be able to look at them on KYTC's functional classification page. And this is the resources that the state has. So on this URL, some of the things that would be of interest, they have an interactive map. But like I said, as of early this week, it was not updated yet. The options to view the PDF are per county, city, or district, so that's a pretty cool feature. And also you can link to download various shape files at that lower URL. If you do that, I was trying to make it as clear as possible because it's a multi-step process, but if you go to the page with that second URL, I have highlighted where the functional classification shape files could be found. And if anyone wants to do this and has questions, I'd be happy to help and walk through the process. Okay, so finally, the KIPTA resources. So if you follow this URL to our GIS data hub, then open the online resource center. Once that is open, you would use the roads option, which is the one that I have in the kind of lower middle red square. That tab has a few different options. So you would click on the eye to make the layer visible for the functional classifications. And then also you would probably want to open the legend, which is in the top right corner. And that'll show you the 7 different potential color codes. And no actions requested. That is all I have on that. I'm happy to take any questions. And like I said, I'll follow up, especially with the Bullitt County changes, because we would like, and I specifically asked if FHWA provided feedback, because we want to know for next time what the reasons were.
Yeah, it was notable how. Well, Chris, I think you'd agree with this, if not, let me know, or at least say so. That NDOT was pretty conservative in their process. KYTC was pretty aggressive, or at least relatively aggressive, so it kind of makes sense that some of that more from Kentucky weren't approved by Federal Highways, to the extent that Federal Highways was looking at it through the same exact lens across the country. But the ones that we submitted were not that aggressive. We thought they were pretty straightforward. That is, that were like the KIPTA group ideas. If you're wondering, a lot of the KYTC aggressiveness, if you will, was based on, maybe like blanket criteria they would put on roads across the state. Okay, so, you know, obviously there are a lot of roads above a certain ADT threshold in our region. That is a really high ADT in rural Kentucky, but it's, you know, it's kind of medium around these parts. Okay, and so it kind of made sense to not. I get perhaps why Federal Highways might not have approved those. And so that was a little too aggressive, perhaps. But again, like, some of these questions remain unanswered.
I'd be curious for like you, Keith, from Bullitt County. I'm sure the same people that sat with Oldham County at the table from KIPTA sat with you, and so this thought process should have been the same. Why were ours approved and those not?
It'd be interesting to see what the.
Yeah.
comments are.
Yeah.
For the most part, our requests that we made locally were all accepted.
Yeah.
Outside of what happened in Bullitt County.
Yeah.
So.
And that one in Southwest Jefferson County.
Yeah.
Right, so,
So do these get updated to your resource page immediately, or do you wait for all of them to get approved and you get an answer on everything and then everything gets updated? I mean, is it rolling through right now?
But in the Indiana ones are updated because
Okay.
we have the shape files, but we don't have the shape files for the Kentucky ones just yet.
I updated the changes that were approved on Kentucky that we got, but, yeah, once we get the shape files from Kentucky, I'll make sure that they're all right, and I'll basically just put what they give us.
Would you say to replace, so we're like
Yeah.
synonymous with.
Yeah, right now, we're kind of in limbo just to make sure.
Yeah.
They are updated with everything that she just presented that was accepted. But we just want to make sure once they give us the shape files, that is on.
Other questions for Chris or Zach? Thank you, Chris.
Yep, thank you.
All right, next, we've got another item with, doesn't require action, but I'm sure will be informational, the Build 2050 Act. Brady? I'm sorry, Build America 2050 Act.
250.
250.
We haven't been around that long.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, force.
2050 was earlier.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so just, stolen a couple slides from Ampo, they have given us permission to do that. Ampo is on top of all the changes happening at the federal level, and so just give me a little summary of kind of where we're at with this Build America 250 Act and where that lies within the process of the actual federal funding reauthorization process. So first, reauthorization on one, what is that exactly? Why does it matter? The Surface Transportation Reauthorization represents the multi-year federal law that authorizes highway, transit, bridge, safety, freight, and planning programs. It determines how much funding flows to states and regions, therefore it's very important to this body and your constituents. It affects which programs local governments can access, thinking specifically MPO dedicated funds at this table that comes from this bill, as well as other discretionary programs or things that local entities can access. It also affects within those programs, which programs will continue on as they have been, which ones will be new programs with new funding amounts and new eligibilities, which programs are going to be removed, or if there's for the existing programs, is there any adjustments? What is eligible for federal reimbursement? And so this kind of determines how much flexibility MPOs and our local partners have with our federal funding. In terms of when does it happen, in that middle item there, typically this process occurs every 5 years. You can see on a timeline at the bottom that shows previous iterations of federal funding reauthorizations back to 1998 with the T21. We had Safety Loop, MAP 21, the FAST Act, and then the IIJA, which we currently are in. The IIJA expires September 30th, 2026. You may look at the timeline and say, Brady, that's not every 5 years, that's more than that. Well, that's because oftentimes the ending date of the bill comes and the new bill isn't ready. And so the federal government has to provide some level of extension. And so that's a common process. It's very likely to occur this go around as well. And I'll talk about that more in just a minute. A couple of highlights that AMPO points out from the Build 250 Act. The Build 250 Act is the act that has come out of the federal House committees that still needs federal House floor approval and is separate from the Senate version of the bill. The Senate will develop their own bill. It could be very similar to the House's bill. It could be very different. They're still in their committee's process and they haven't released anything yet. So this is basically all we have for an idea of what the actual reauthorization will look like. So when I'm showing this information to you, don't take this as gospel. This is going to happen. All of these things are subject to change, but it gives us an idea of what to anticipate over the next several months. Okay, so a couple of things highlighted. Paradigm shift. Most of the funding here, 90% of the funding is going towards formula programs. So there's a pullback on discretionary programs. Discretionary programs give the federal government more of an opportunity to direct their policy as they see fit. Formula funds essentially allow the recipients of the funds, states in many cases, more jurisdiction on how exactly they want to use that funding within the base eligibilities of the base programs. But it provides more stability and a more surety of how much your state or region or local municipality will be able to receive year to year, as opposed to a feast, famine, discretionary strategy. So that's one shift from the IIJA. AMPO highlights a greater share of local and regional access to these federal funds. They provide an estimate of 22% of all the funding is gonna be accessible to locals or regional entities. They did not share what that exact number is from their calculations for the IHA, so I can't give you what it was, but they couched it in a way that 22% is better than the IHA in terms of local share, regional share, in terms of funding access. PL dollars, it's anticipated to grow the amount of PL dollars received and also have a reduced match requirement. And there's a few other things I'll mention here that are kind of on the watch list. For other adjustments that's shown in the bottom right there. I wanted to also share a quote from Addie Tomer and Ben Swedberg of the Brookings Institute, who've done analysis on this act. And one thing they pointed out that I thought was worth noting is that the BUILD Act includes multiple sensible permitting reforms, particularly for new ways to qualify for categorical exclusions under the National Environmental Policy Act. The categorical exclusion would now be granted when a project's federal funding doesn't exceed $12 million or total project costs don't exceed $70 million. So if that's true and that remains, that is a potential strategy this act has for expediting project delivery and lowering compliance costs. That's specifically relevant to our dedicated projects. Many of them would fit that bill. Okay. A couple highlights, looking specifically at the STBG funds and TAP funds, both of which, a portion of which is sub-allocated directly to KIPTA, but a lot of which stay at the state level as well. Projected to grow more than any other capital focused formula program. You can see 7.59% from fiscal year 26 to 27 in that top left image there. And then the CMAQ program you see on the right is also expected to grow. However, there's also a set aside for 10% off the top that states must put towards alternative fuel charging initiatives. This essentially replaces the NEVI program, which is anticipated to go away. So CMAQ increases, but a percentage of that is taken off the top to go towards alternative fuel charging. And then there's also projected to be an elimination of the CRP program, the carbon reduction program. I'll state again, this is not projected to be a rescission, but I guess, removal of the future funds. So in other words, KIPTA has CRP funds programmed to dedicated projects. We have those funds in our budget right now. So if any funds we receive sub-allocated in fiscal year 24, 25, 26, we are still anticipating to be able to have access to utilize those funds. We just don't anticipate that we'll have future CRP funds for fiscal years 20, 21, 30. So hopefully some of that funds will be able to be replaced by the increased TAP and STBG funds. One other note is I'm going to focus on the bottom part of this slide here with the bridge formula program, or the bridge program, as it's called in this act. It's projected to increase the bridge formula program, which typically or has in the IIJA roughly received about $5.5 billion. This is the formula, not discretionary. It's projected to receive $9 billion, a little more than $9 billion per year, and is projected to have a 25% set aside for in-state competition. This 25% set aside is specifically for locally maintained and owned bridges. So the state would receive the money, they would be required to set aside 25% and have a statewide process for distributing that portion of their funds to those locals interested. Okay, so those are some of the highlights of this Build America 250 Act. Where are we at on the process of this actually becoming something relevant? Like I said, House Committee passed the Build America 250 Act with a 62-2 vote in approval. They are waiting for September when Congress comes back in session to get that to the floor to be approved. And then that's on a parallel track with the Senate. So the Senate has their own process. They go through these committees you see below number 4 here on the screen. They start with the EPW committee. Apparently they need to get done what they need to get done before the Commerce and Banking Committee can make adjustments. They're waiting on that committee. But they're on a parallel track to create their own bill or their own act, very similar to the one I've just described. It could be, the final results of the Senate bill could be very similar or very different. However, before the actual reauthorization takes place and gets signed by the president, both acts need to be identical. And so they'll have a negotiation process and work out what the new transportation bill will actually look like. That's not gonna happen before September 30th. And so this is, next couple of slides are about what we're anticipating for the extension for the IHA until that new bill can be finalized. On August 2nd, the Senate Appropriations Committee Chair, Vice Chair released a bipartisan continuing resolution. At a high level, this continuing resolution would fund the federal government through December 11th. That would be a 72-day extension. That includes an extension of the federal surface transportation programs. That's specifically the programs in the Highway Trust Fund, not from the general fund. And continue Highway Trust Spending Authority. We would anticipate that those programs, I'm talking SDVG, TA, et cetera, the base formula programs, would be prorated through that extension amount at the same levels of fiscal year 26 is kind of what we're anticipating at this time. And then once it may be extended again, or maybe we'll have a new bill and that'll be changed at that time. Okay, this extension, as it's written right now, does not cover Division J, which provided the IIJ's 5 years of advanced appropriations. Division J provided USDOT with additional $36.8 billion per year from fiscal year 22 through fiscal year 26. Unlike Highway Trust Fund, Contract Authority, Division J funding came from the general fund. It was not provided and was provided in advance. And so what this basically means is there's a variety of programs, most of which are discretionary programs, that could have a halt in their ability to authorize funds for new years. So if you're anticipating authorizing fiscal year 27 funding from a variety of these SS4A bill type programs, that's not for sure to be extended in the same way that the Highway Trust Fund programs are. That's kind of highlighted in this last paragraph here. Basically what I just said. Also of note that this works in a very similar way to my understanding as the actual reauthorization bill. The Senate extension, this resolution still needs to be approved by the House. So the House have their own continuing resolution that's proposed to go through December 4th, and the Senate's one is the one I just described that goes through December 11th. They have to then, so the House, which the House's doesn't actually include any surface transportation extension at all. The House will either have to accept the Senate's resolution, or they're gonna have to negotiate and come to terms on one single agreement before they can send that to the president to sign, to extend the future life of the IIJA as needed. I anticipate that they're trying to get it pushed through before the end of December with midterms coming up. It's in with Republicans controlling the House and the Senate. It's in their best interest to get a new transportation bill signed while they have votes. So that's what I would anticipate, a fairly short extension in both cases. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Is this good information for you guys? Because I think a lot of people ask us questions, and a lot of times we have some answers and we don't have some others. But if this type of information is something that this committee wants, we most definitely can try to do more of it, or do this more often. So I hope you found it one educational. Thank you. It's really important. Obviously, it's very important what Brady was just talking about for certain.
Thank you, Brady. Any other questions? I have none. All right, thank you. That was a lot of information. That was good. Next we have Kyle and Chris, the Moving Kentuckiana Forward 2050 Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the FY 2027, FY 2030 Transportation Improvement Program update.
Alrighty, hello again. Chris and I are gonna talk about the timeline for project listings for the new TP that we're working on. So a little overview, talk about some big picture things as well as some dates in mind, as well as some stuff about some new MTP projects. And then Chris will take it from there and discuss some important updates to project applications, as well as scoring processes and deadlines for projects to be included in the initial MTP and tip drafts, as well as just how all this works together with the remaining amendments and add-ons to the existing tip and MTP. So, big picture, public review of the new tip and MTP is scheduled to begin in March. This means that all project listings will be approved in March, which means that all projects must be finalized in March, which means that we will need these project listings before then. This is all in order to request approval from the TPC for the new MTP and tip by the May 27th TPC. Keeping this in mind, we need your all's help. Think big about projects that you want to be included, about new projects you want to be included in the MTP. These can be projects that you want to see in your community. They're unfunded, looking out to 2050. From there, hand it off to Chris. About some more details.
I hope everyone's caffeinated, and I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds. We're gonna achieve all of this,
Very important information and some homework for you guys, so please do.
and we will be talking about this consistently for the next few months too. Okay, so if this project scoring update and KIPTA project applications, how are those related? You might remember that our new scoring rubric was approved at the June TPC. So as of today, and Greg or Brady can correct me if I'm wrong, it might not be yet, but it will be today. Our full project applications have that updated scoring system attached to them.
Yes.
So any new full project applications, it'll be getting that new score. All projects included in the new MTP and subset tip are going to need to be scored or rescored. This means the full project application must be made to acquire that score. That includes existing projects. We understand that that's a massive task for some agencies. So with that said, KIPTA staff has planned that we can commit to completing the applications whenever possible. And we don't need to do this. I should say that if any agency wishes to complete their own full project applications for all their projects, that is more than acceptable. But if they want to hand it over to KIPTA to take off some of the administrative burden, whenever possible means KIPTA staff will do the apps for the projects that do not need to be changed at all outside of the score. So the other, whenever possible, is that KIPTA staff can do the applications for projects that only need updates to the open to public year and or the total estimated product cost. Sponsors are going to be asked to complete the applications for all new projects and also any existing projects needing changes outside of what I just said. So now I'm gonna go through what we have planned to determine which projects could be on the KIPTA staff list versus the sponsor update list. We're working on something called the existing projects worksheet. And sometime next week, we'll be sending out a worksheet to each of the sponsors listing every single MTP and TIP project, the active MTP and TIP project on that particular sponsor's list. So the worksheets are going to include an instruction tab and also then another tab with a sheet that has all of those active MTP and TIP projects and relevant project information just for convenience to be able to reference. And then highlighted, we will have 4 simple questions. Some of them are gonna have drop-down menus. Shouldn't be too painful. That's all we're gonna ask is these 4 questions. So the goal is to determine if KIPTA staff has enough information to do the full applications ourselves and create a list of KIPTA IDs for the sponsors where we would need you to do the applications. The purpose of this, this existing project worksheet is to get a status check on all of the projects. Are they active, completed, or inactive? Do we need to make any changes there? Because typically, we don't know when a project is complete unless someone tells us. So hopefully, we'll be able to get a little tally there and be able to not worry about those projects for the new TIP and MTP. We're gonna check on the open to public dates. So this new MTP, some of you have MTP only projects that don't yet have TIP funding. If they have an open to public date coming up in the next couple of years, in most cases, it's unlikely that that's the right date for that project. So this is the long range plan. We're gonna need to look at those projects, go ahead and update those open to public dates. Probably sometime between 2031 and 2050, the horizon year. If for some reason you feel like you wanna have a long range plan project with an open to public date in 2030, talk to us and we can see if that makes sense, but overall, in general, we're thinking 2031 to 2050 is the open to public date for products that don't yet have TIP funding. So also, we're gonna look at the total estimated project cost. This is gonna be an opportunity as well for sponsors to review our records in case there are unexpected changes that you all need before we do make the MTP and TIP update. So you might be able to catch some of those things there. Hopefully our records match yours though. Okay. I'm briefly gonna go into some of the terminology. This is gonna be repeated on the worksheet as well. So completed, that means it no longer is gonna need to be in the upcoming MTP and TIP. It's done or it will be done. We can go ahead and mark it complete in our database and not worry about adding it to the new project list. Active, that's pretty self-explanatory. The project's not done. We're keeping it on our database and on the list. Inactive, sometimes you might want inactive if perhaps usually KIPTA staff finds this if there's a redundancy, same project limits, that maybe the highway department is doing a similar project that one of the LPAs is doing. Perhaps we need to make that inactive, cases like that. Or an LPA might decide we're not really gonna pursue that project anymore. We would make it inactive in our database, but it's still in our database, so we still have a record of it. Hypothetically, down the road, project wants to be pursued again, we can go ahead and make it active, but we would go through the normal processes to re-add it to the MTP and TIP. Open public date update, I already kind of went into the 2031 to 2050 window. We can also, let's say you have a project that is in the TIP and the only change you want to make is bump up the open to public date, we would be able to do that with this list too. Total estimated project cost, just to elaborate on what that means, that is the estimate for the life of the project, including all of the planned phases. The phases don't necessarily need to be programmed, but we do need to know how much you all think the project will cost. And that's mainly for the MTP, but we do list that in the TIP as well. And then the 4th question is whether or not there's any additional changes. That's just a yes or no question. Just to kind of help us see if it's gonna be a project that we need you to fill out the application for versus if you would like us to do it on your behalf. Oh, and I should also point out here, anyone who's done a full project application, they're aware that they get kind of a receipt via email. So if you elected to have KIPTA staff fill out these applications, we would be the submitter. So any of us who did the application, we would get a receipt in our email, but then we would put the existing project contact as project contact, and they would also get that email receipt, so they would see exactly what KIPTA staff wrote in the application. And of course, if we made a mistake, you can tell us, like always. All right, so remaining updates, All right, now I'm gonna go into this slide's a little bit messed up, I apologize. The remaining updates to our current MTP and TIP. So what we have left, we have amendment 5, which is also MTP amendment 14. That one is currently active. We have 7 updates in there, and by the way, these updates, they potentially may not have to have an air quality model update. For anyone who has an update in there, these will be applied to the current MTP and TIP only. As stated earlier, the full project application is connected to the updated scoring system starting today. So when sponsors submit full applications, that KIPTA ID would be ready to be scored or rescored, if applicable, included on the new draft for the MTP and TIP. So we won't have to do that whole application again. And then amendment 6, which will be MTP amendment 15, that's going to be coming this fall. So for that one, we are expecting to include the KYTC highway plan, 2026 highway plan updates, hopefully. And these can get the score for the new TIP and MTP all good to go, and they'll be set for when we make the big update. Oh, oops. And then we have a tentative TIP amendment 7, which would be cross listed as MTP 16. That one will be very similar, likely be very similar to the first amendment for the new MTP and TIP. So the reason why I put this on here is because we're likely to have changes requested during the time period where the initial drafts are under review, so we can't add anything to those project lists, but we need to prepare them for, we need to either add them to the existing TIP and MTP or prepare them for the new TIP and MTP, or potentially both. I know that's a little bit crazy sounding, so we'll explain that process again as we get closer to the date and see what potential needs all of you folks have. Some changes may only be needed for the current TIP and MTP. Those would be on the amendment 7 list. Some will be needed for the current and the future. Those would be on the amendment 1 list, which would be pending the approval of the new TIP and MTP. Also, in this bucket, the amendment 7 bucket, that would include any of the projects that need to be amended coming out of the call for projects that we have coming up soon. So this is going to be discussed again in the coming months. Hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense when we don't have so much going on. Here's the timeline for the active amendment right now. We're going to request TPC approval in September. And as I mentioned earlier, it's not 100%, but it is a possibility that this is not going to need to have a air quality model update. So that might actually be the actual full list. And we might not have to wait longer to get that one in there.
Makes things easier.
Yes, hopefully. And this is the tentative timeline for amendment 6, the fall amendment. So this one, we would like to have our applications by September 30th. And also the committee dates that I have on here are to be determined due to, we have Veterans and Thanksgiving holidays. And so we haven't quite yet figured out when we're gonna have those meetings. And I'll take any questions now or via email. No action here. I know that was a lot.
Either we were well caffeinated or it was just a good presentation. Thank you. You have any questions for Chris?
And I should say, we likely are gonna meet with District 5 to discuss some of the things that are nuanced to their needs. And I also am planning to meet with TARP on some of the things that are nuanced, accustomed to their needs. And if anyone else has any concerns on our plans, just let me know.
It's very true that we have project sponsors several that have lots of projects. And then many that have very few, and so hopefully this is a project that hopefully helps out both those types of organizations that you all represent.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have any other business from the floor or Andy?
Got a couple things, unless somebody else says something first. I'll jump right in. I'd like to recognize Vince Robinson from Trimark, I should say, and Brad Cummings from Clarksville. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. A brief update, I think probably last time we met, and then you probably heard about this if you were part of our recent Mead, Kentucky and Indiana project update meetings. KIPTA put out an RFQ within the last couple of months about helping us get our project costs and our project schedules under-wrapped, more firm, so that we have better estimates, better timelines to ultimately have better success for our dedicated funded programs. And so just want to update everybody, let everybody know that we have chosen the team of QK4 and HWC, and Jennifer Commissar Ernest back there from HWC, and I think Lindsay's online. Lindsay Hoskins from QK4 is on the line too. So we are in kind of negotiations with them. No cause for alarm. So we should be in good shape and get that officially underway soon. And I want to thank them for being at those two meetings to kind of get the head start on that project. Third, Chris just mentioned a minute ago, we've got an issue where our November meeting of TTCC coincides with Veterans Day. So stay tuned on that. We'll have to figure something out there, maybe surrounding the way that, and then of course the TPC meeting that month always usually coincides with Thanksgiving. So be on the lookout for something in the next 30, 60 days on what we do there. And then also, and last but not least, I think everybody has probably already heard now, but LaGrange mayor and former executive John Black from Old County passed away, and I think everybody knew that by now. He was a very beloved figure at KIPTA, and it sounds like through the news accounts and everything that's come out in the last few weeks by everybody. You know, had the Little League game on the other day. People in the crowd in Indianapolis cheering on the North Oldham Little League. They had a John Black sign too. So I think if anybody's been around here for any amount of time, they know they've met him and come to love him. It's a big loss for our community, and I think that Mr. Chairman, I think you'd share that. I hope with so you loss. Indeed. Hate to end on that note. That concludes my other business.
Thank you. And thank you for mentioning John.
Mhm.
Anyone else? With no other comments, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.